Welcome into Minnesota Vikings now. The season is over, but that means the offseason is ramping up, and the Minnesota Vikings have the 23rd overall pick in the 2023 NFL Draft. That is their first-round selection, so we will look at 10 potential players the Vikings could take in round one, knowing things can and will change as the Vikings make moves and the pre-draft process rolls on. As you sit right now, early ideal outcome for Minnesota. What position do you want the Vikings to draft in round one of this year's draft? Head down to the comment section. Drop that position for me in there. We're going to begin it with number one, not necessarily like a true ranking, but just how we're going to discuss them today. Quentin Johnston, the Texas Christian University wide receiver, TCU, doesn't have the same top-end speed that maybe other receivers do. People were like, he didn't play well against Georgia. And I was like, he had a touchdown. Max Duggan missed him by 15 yards. I don't know what you want him to do there. Big-bodied receiver, physical after the catch. My rather bold player comparison for him, skinny Dez Bryant. Well, he's going to win contested catches. He's going to make some guys miss after the catch as well. Could be a fun, different play style at wide receiver alongside Justin Jefferson since, you know what, I'm not sure Adam Thielen's back next year for the Vikings given his contract situation, but that's a future video. Number two, Jaxon Smith-Njigba, who was entering the year potential wide receiver one. Not sure he'll be wide receiver one this year because JSN did not play at all. I don't think there's top-end speed. I think you're looking at, maybe 4.5 speed, although the turf was much faster this year at the Combine. Everyone ran stupid quick. Slot receiver, but gets open. Quarterback-friendly player because he's a fantastic route runner. Jordan Addison, the other member of the Big Three wide receiver prospects this year, not as good as last season. Addison, well, not as good of a draft class, and Addison wasn't as good last year because, well, USC didn't have to throw him the ball every single play in the same way that Pitt did with Kenny Pickett. Addison, 59 catches, 875 yards, 8 touchdowns. A little bit of a smaller player as well. Will be some, can he play on the outside? Is he a slot-only guy? Highly productive, 2 straight years in a row. Jaxon Smith-Njigba in 2021, his stats, he barely played this year, had a fantastic season. 1,606 yards, 95 catches, was mainly a slot for Ohio State, but he produced better than Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson did. Unfortunately, didn't have the chance to show what he could do this past season for Ohio State. So pick a wide receiver. Of the big three, if you're going to take one in round one, who is it? Type in 1 for Quentin Johnston, 11 for Jaxon Smith-Njigba, or 3 for Jordan and Addison. It's, of course, their numbers in college. If you get the ad break here on YouTube, take advantage of it. Head down there, type in your 1, 11, or 3. Number 4, Cam Smith, the South Carolina corner. Overall, I think a pretty good draft class for the cornerback position. Several different guys who I could see sliding. Maybe Joey Porter Jr., who I like a lot from Penn State. Christian Gonzalez from Oregon. They won't all be there. I bet one of the cornerbacks is there. Cam Smith could be one of them. You never want to scout the helmet, but a pretty good track record in recent years from South Carolina corners to the NFL. J.C. Horn, hell, Israel Mukuamu looked actually pretty good in the nickel, shockingly, for the Cowboys Monday Night Football against the Bucs. Number 5, though, which is maybe the more fun option, is Keelo Ringo. He has the size, speed traits that NFL teams just always find ways to love to covet. Ringo has made some big-time plays, also has given up more plays than what you would expect. Cam Smith, for example, allowed 18 catches all year long. Ringo allowed a few more, but he has the size, the traits, the upside that I think a general manager like Kwesi Adofo-Mensah is going to have a lot of interest in adding. And let's be honest, Vikings need more cornerback help. Hopefully Andrew Booth getting healthy helps, but I'm not banking on veterans and 4th-round pick Caleb Evans. I'm looking hard at corner if I'm Minnesota this offseason. And we will be here for the entire offseason for you guys. Make sure you are staying up to date with all the latest NFL news and rumors around your Minnesota Vikings. Offseason's here. We do not slow down there. Free videos almost every single day. If you haven't already, subscribe for free, youtube.com/@VikingsToday. Number 6, and this one will be controversial, I know. It's Anthony Richardson. What you would do here is keep Kirk for a season, see if he can not check down on 4th and 8 again. I don't blame him for the loss. And groom Richardson behind Kirk Cousins and give him time. Richardson, and I made this point on our mock draft stuff on Chat Sports, he is an easy eval for me, where the traits are awesome, the consistency is not very good, the accuracy comes and goes, the decision-making's bad, even on just read option stuff, but immense upside, arm strength, mobility, all of it, the flashes. But although the eval is easy, the valuation is not. Where do you take that? Where do you take a guy who completed 54% of his passes, less than a 2-to-1 touchdown interception ratio, but has a cannon and runs fast, but who knows how intelligent he is in terms of that's going to be determined by the meetings, like it is for all quarterbacks. But there's so much unknown with Richardson. It makes for the biggest boom or bust prospect in the NFL draft. The biggest boom or bust I've seen since, if we're not including Malik Willis, Josh Allen. One worked out great. Willis, not great results so far. Of course, it is early. And it does, of course, have questions about Kirk Cousins. He'll be back here next year. I'd be pretty shocked if he wasn't. Doesn't make financial sense. But eventually, you would look at replacements, whether you want to set your salary cap books in order and or just want to try out a young guy. So do you want the Vikings to draft a quarterback? Not even necessarily in round 1, but in round 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever. Y for yes, N for no. Sound off in the comments section. Let's move to number 7, Clark Phillips, one of the handful of guys I've gotten a little bit further in my evaluation process there. Teams did throw at Clark Phillips a decent amount at Utah. The big knock on him is that he's just tiny. He gets a ton of interceptions, 6 interceptions this year, 6 pass breakups, 2 pick sixes, has a defensive touchdown each of the last 3 years, just making guys play or pay, taking it back to the house there. I like him in the nickel in particular, where the size isn't as impactful. He covers well, great feel, allowed a lot of catches. 41's a lot, but 511 yards, not so much. Throwing 6 picks, there's a lot to like there for Clark Phillips. He's kind of the Roger McCreary, Asante Samuel guy from this year. If he's undersized, but he's good at football, and back end of round 1, or I guess mid to late part of round 1, I have interest there. Number 8, Nolan Smith. I'm glad I did him in my when I had time over the weekend. Tricky prospect. Lack of production here. 3 sacks in 2022, 4.5 in 2021. Not great production, but that's the Georgia defense, and he's been banged up. There's a lot of bursts there. He's got good run defense ability as well, but only played 188 snaps. I don't love the power. If you're sticking in that kind of stand-up edge rusher role, which had last year Ed Donatel, I'll see if he gets fired. Nolan Smith makes a lot of sense there. Just it's an upside gamble pick, but if you're doing that, do it with a Georgia player. This makes sense. There's also uncertainty around, I'd argue, both za'darius Smith and Danielle Hunter. Both those guys could potentially be on the way out. Hunter could be a prime trade candidate or restructure or extension, or maybe you cut him and try to really rebuild that front as you move forward. Number 9 is Drew Sanders, the Arkansas linebacker who began his career at Alabama, made the move to the Razorbacks, and played awesome for them this year. Borderline like, those numbers don't make sense. 103 tackles and 10 sacks. Now, everybody wants to find the next Micah Parsons. You're not going to. Do not chase him. It will lead to bad things in the end. But Sanders can play off-ball linebacker and can play some blitzing, edge rusher role if you need to as well. He's got a very rare frame at 6'5". If you wanted to, I think you could try to make him a full-time edge, but I think the first move will be put him as ideally a 3-4 inside linebacker. Let him be a north to south player going downhill, and then you can let Brian Asamoah be your coverage linebacker. I think Sanders, Asamoah, as you eventually move on and ship out Kendricks and Hicks, who are both not that great this year, I think that's a great 1-2 punch. But how much investment does an analytics-driven guy in Kwesi Adofo-Mensah that want to put into linebacker? That's not the typical MO. They spent was a late 2, early 3rd? Which one was it, Seatman? 3, early 3 on Brian Asamoah. You might not see them invest that much more at the position because that's not what the analytics say is the right value for your first-round pick. Today's show is made possible by our sportsbook partner, BetUS. When you go to chatsports.com/bet and you use promo code CHAT125, you will get a 125% deposit bonus. $100 down minimum to get that deposit bonus, but you can bet on the playoffs, and there will be a ton of NFL draft prop bets around the combine, the draft itself. Pay attention to what we say here. You'll be able to make some money on that. Chatsports.com/bet. Promo code is chat125. Number 10, Lucas Van Ness. I think you'll hear more and more about him as a riser. Not to the same extent as Trayvon Walker, but I think he's going to be a first-round pick. Van Ness is a better athlete than A.J. Epinesa was, can do some, base defensive end, can reduce inside, can be a pure edge. He offers a lot of ability. I like Van Ness, especially in a draft class that lost guys like Jared Verse on going back to school, who he probably would have been a top 15 pick, that bumps up other edges. Keep an eye on Van Ness out of Iowa. We mentioned Daniil Hunter. You could also see a move for Za'Darius Smith. You cut him before June 1st, before his contract guarantees. You save $12.3 million. It's a lot of money for a team that needs it this offseason. Last stop before we go, the Vikings 2022 draft class can inform what the Vikings will look for this year. They traded down, took Lewis Cine, he got hurt. Took Andrew Booth, got hurt. What are you going to do? It happens. Ed Ingram started a bunch of games. There's a lot more room to grow. Brian Asamoah, I think, is going to be a stud for them long term. Caleb Evans, didn't really do much. He was also banged up. Ezi Otomewo, he's kind of a developmental guy that's fine. Ty Chandler, Darian Lowe. Jalen Naylor flashed for a 6th-round pick. That was a nice find there. Nick Muse, you got volume out of that draft class. 10 picks each year, you will find some success unless you just suck. So, with that in mind, grade Kwesi's first draft class. After the first year, right? A, B, C, D, or F. You can get those votes in for me in the comment section.